No, you didn't. It's happy to know that it's working. Probably not. Everyone there? All right, let us call the regular meeting on Tuesday, April 23rd, 2019 of the Governing Board at 7:12. And let us see that everyone is here. All board members are here, and we'll stand for the pledge.
And
And
then
after the pledge, we will stand for a moment of silence. All right, so we would like to have a motion to adopt the agenda.
I move that the governing board adopt the agenda with the exception of moving agenda item 7A directly following 3B.
I second.
All those in favor, say aye.
I have a question
I'm sorry.
about, if you don't mind, about the agenda. I noticed there are a couple items on here that are action items that weren't brought to us first as a preview item, approving the salary recommendations and then the voluntary developer per unit agreement with Lennar. I was just wondering why those were not brought to us as preview items, since that is our general process that was agreed upon.
I had the same question as well during the agenda review meeting. And as it relates to the salary recommendation item, that actually has never been brought as a preview item in past years. They actually went back to research the previous agendas, and it's always just come as an action item.
And the reason probably is we were always running out of time. That's probably why. But yeah, well, historically we've that's how it's gone.
Last year, Jenny and I raised huge objections about that, and in fact, we ended up having to table that till the next week because it was done that way.
Okay, that's how we did it last year. But I don't. Maybe Mr. M could fill us in on historic. But we went back and looked, and that's the way it's always been done. So if you wanted to change it, you could do again like we did tonight, or like we did before, like you said. If you want to move it,
I would like
the board's a prerogative.
Do you have more additional information, Mr. Miglino?
President Ordway, members of the board, Dr. Finch. I don't have any additional information to share with you other than the fact that we've also allowed for in the past when something was timely to have it included in the Friday update that the board receives, and in both instances that was the case, both the salary recommendation and the Lennar development agreement's been in the Friday update a number of times.
The salary recommendation appeared in the last board update, which we received right before Easter weekend, so the district was closed on Friday, so there wasn't really an opportunity to do research and answer questions.
People texted me and I answered them and emailed me. But yeah, no, I don't disagree with you. Yes, it was on Thursday, I believe.
Could I make a recommendation that we could discuss each of those items at the time, and if a board member wanted to, they could move to table it to the next meeting?
Certainly.
Would that be acceptable if we move forward with this
perfect.
motion
Yeah,
at this
that's
time?
perfectly acceptable. Thank you, Mrs. O'Brien.
So we're ready to vote on the agenda. Oh, yes, we
Yes.
are. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those against, there are none. 5 ayes.
Oh, it was there and then it disappeared, and there it went. Okay.
There it goes. Try again.
Went away.
Okay, so we will start with our board reports. Mrs. Tweedy.
I would just like to say really quickly, I did take the time this weekend and I did read all the comments from the stakeholders and survey. Often we get asked when people take the time to complete surveys, do we actually read the comments? And I just want to assure everybody, I did read all the comments. I did go through the staff survey, the parent survey and community survey, and I also looked at the budget survey. So your comments are valuable to me, and I do appreciate all the feedback I get.
Frank.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank the kindergarten teachers at Las Brisas for inviting me to their school. Had a wonderful time and got a great tour of the school from the principal. I'm also looking forward to attending Sierra Verde's STEAM night tomorrow night and Mountain Shadows Math and Science night on Thursday. So I guess I have a lot of evening events this week, but really looking forward to those. I also took the time to look through the parent comments on the community satisfaction survey. A couple of themes emerged to me, and I know it's on the agenda later as a discussion topic. I did see a lot of comments regarding the PLCs. And some concerns from community members and parents, specifically with child care arrangements and difficulties with work schedule. I also saw comments, a lot of support for putting dollars in the classroom and into teachers' salaries, and then also concerns about class sizes. So those were sort of the three big topics that jumped out at me. And I just want to say to community members, I do take your comments seriously. I have always advocated for higher salaries for teachers and more dollars into the classroom, as well as class sizes. And I had similar concerns to the community in regards to the PLCs. Ms. Tweedy and I both did. So I'd just like to state that for anyone who may be watching who had comments on that. And that's it for my report.
Thank you, Mrs. Reed.
I had the opportunity to attend a couple of events in the district. I attended the Interfaith Breakfast. That was the first one I was able to attend, and it was great to see so many community leaders there that are willing to pour into our schools and our students and are looking for partnership opportunities. So principals and teachers, there are organizations that want to come in and help out on campus, however that may be, with cleaning desks, stapling papers, making copies. So we're hoping to help connect them to you. I went to the Boulder Creek Mountain Ridge lacrosse game, which was really fun to watch student athletes from both of our schools compete. It was a great time, and we were able to watch them in the stadium at Boulder Creek High School. I went to the Community Ed Open House. They have a beautiful facility at Copper Creek, and I'm excited to watch their program grow. Everybody was very welcoming. I learned a lot about the different programs and opportunities that they have for our families, and I'm excited to help spread the word for the way that they're going to pour into our district a little bit more. And then I took my family, loaded up my three little kids, and we went to Barry Goldwater High School last week for their cultural fair, and it was amazing to see the high school students completely on their own, putting this together, representing their countries. The booths were incredible. They had interactive games and activities for the kids, and to engage a 5-year-old, a 7-year-old, and an 11-year-old to learn about culture, my kids totally bought in, and they were like, can we come next year? Can we do this again? So it was neat to be able to bring them along and have them experience that with me. I read through the parent comments 5 different times. Last night, it took me 7.5 hours to read through the parent comments and all of the staff comments for one final time, and I have 11 pages of notes. So when you ask whether or not we read those, we do. There was a lot of very good constructive feedback, and I did ask for it to be on the agenda as a discussion item because I believe that there are some things that we as a governing board can do to help address some of those parent and staff concerns. And I'm excited for the discussion about how we can work together to do those. So thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Reed. Mrs. O'Brien.
I got to attend a lot of the events that have been discussed already, so I will not repeat that. Very exciting. And this morning we kicked off with our first A+ School of Excellence ceremony at Diamond Canyon, which is awesome. It's so great to get to see our band and our choir and our kids and all the superhero teachers on the Diamond Canyon. Not just teachers, but staff as well. And I think they made Dr. Finch an honorary superhero as well today. So that was an exciting way to start off our Tuesday. I had a West Ed board meeting last week. And so on that board, we get to hear some...
Could you just explain to us what West Ed is again?
They have been around for 50 years, and they do research and education, as well as they were one of the vendors that would apply to do our RFP for the special ed process study. So they do a lot of different things around many of the big topics: equity, diversity, finance. And so one of the programs that was presented on Thursday was about doing finance at the school level with a focus on equity as well. It was an incredibly interesting presentation. I look forward to sitting down with Dr. Finch at some time and talking about that some more. I have not been able to locate the exact date when it's supposed to go into effect, where we will be required by ESSA to report our finances out at the school level. Clark County did it a few years ago, so they've had it in place for 4 years. It was a very interesting discussion about teacher salaries and staff salaries when you start looking at your budgets at the school level, especially with the equity lens. The other study that they talked about, or program that they talked about they're working on, is a special education study that they have been contracted to do in Maryland. And it is to look at their special ed processes and best practices hand in hand with the costs of special education. And they are actually hoping to do some case studies where they sit in on the IEP meetings and follow those kids and talk to parents and teachers and try to really study what special education is costing in our public schools, along with those right best practices. So I'm looking forward to a lot of good information. They have free resources out there, so I would encourage any of our staff to go out there and look at that website as well. And it is that time of year where we are celebrating, and it's exciting. I'm looking forward to our promotions, the end of testing first, I guess, end of testing, and then all of the other celebrations that come. So thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. O'Brien. So we are actually heading into the final chapter of 1819. Who wants to clap yet?
Nice.
No clapping for that? Okay.
We haven't made it yet.
I didn't say we made it, but we're heading there. So the opportunities to experience our staff and students shining have been many. And I want to say that Corey from Fox 10 has been highlighting positivity in education statewide for years. And I am especially happy that he has chosen, however that happens, to pick quite a few of our campuses. And listening to him talk to the kids, and then knowing that public is being able to see wonderful things that our students are doing, it's about time that the positivity is out there. So today was the Diamond Canyon A++ celebration. Those A+ are earned for 3.5 years. So they had done that 3.5 years ago. And it was an amazing thing to watch that Coyote family come together. No matter who was there, they all knew what superhero was and what their superpower was. So as we continue in Deer Valley to explore every opportunity under the sun to make sure that we can determine and maybe find a spot for every single kid. It's very exciting to watch these kids, no matter if they're in the arts, if they're in tech, if they're in athletics, if they are the ambassadors for their school, greeting you when you come in. Having a place and a job at a school is really important to them. So I do appreciate all that our staff does to ensure that our kids are connected. One more thing, tomorrow night, I know we've got a lot of STEAM stuff going on, but if you are the parent or the teacher or somebody that knows an 8th grade young lady that needs a dress for her promotion or 8th grade dance, I'll be at Goldwater tomorrow with dresses for them. So on that note, Dr. Finch.
All right, yeah, this is the celebration time of the year. Lots of awards, and if you should be following me on Twitter. Then you would know what's happening around here, because I get around and try to get to a lot of the events. As mentioned before, the cultural fairs. It's neat to see that concept go and move out into the buildings, and actually the students carrying it. So I'm pretty excited about that. It's time for all the sports as they finish up the spring sports. Does Arizona really have a spring, though? I'm just still scratching my chin on that one. I think it's the same as fall and winter sports. It was January.
Says the man
January
who was
was our
wearing a
spring.
jacket a couple weeks ago.
By the way, it's freezing in here.
Yeah, we have springs on trampolines in Arizona. But
Jim always turns the AC way up. It's freezing. But we have exciting things also coming that you might want to scratch down. The dates probably evade me, but we have Battle of the Books coming up and Teacher of the Year coming up. So stay tuned to your calendars there. Miss Sheila knows all those dates. We'll make sure you can get a chance to check those out. So once again, thanks to all the staff and students who put together all those celebrations. And it's neat to see us moving forward in a positive direction. So that's it. Thanks.
thank you. Whose turn is it?
It's mine. It is my turn. I move that the governing board accept the administration's recommendation of Scott Backus for the principal of Deer Valley Middle School.
Second.
Jenna, did you want to say something before we make our decision, or you want to wait till we're done? You're good? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
5 ayes.
Did everybody voted? Everybody hit the number? Yep, we're excited to obviously to add him to the Deer Valley Middle School. The board got a chance to interview him in executive session and ask some really great questions, and he seems to be a perfect fit for this time, and we're excited to see that campus move forward.
No public comments. Old business. I move that the governing board discuss and instruct the district's official delegate, Julie Reed, as to the board's direction to be considered by the ASBA Legislative Committee.
Second.
Are we going to discuss this? Or is there anything that we are changing or don't agree with, or does it look good the way it is?
We're actually supposed to send in our top 5 with 2 alternates, so I had sent some information to Dr. Finch, and I don't know if anybody else did.
No, that I can read. These are good ones, and so we'll add them to the discussion mix. Obviously, being financially prepared to continue funding education during this next economic downturn, if and when it comes, we need to be ready for that. Number 2, additional funding for nationally competitive certified and classified salaries. Everyone's mentioned that before. Funding for additional counselors and safety resource officers. That's something we've talked about as a board. Establish financial and academic transparency for all institutions that accept public funds. That's Dr. Finch's favorite speech. And lastly, fully fund all-day kindergarten. Those are the 5 that were sent in to me, and I think probably most of us would agree with those. And if any other ones that folks want to add, it'd be a good time.
I'm fine with those 5.
I'm fine with those 5 also.
Me as well.
Right?
They were my suggestions, so
Well, I'm
I'm
guessing
I'm really fine with them.
I'm really fine with them too. So I guess we're all fine with them.
Yeah, I think they all hit. That's a pretty vast array and hits a lot of hot topics in our state. So that would be a good suggestion. I
Really
believe.
like that transparency one.
Don't get me started.
Okay.
Sure.
So we need to vote that we're going to have those 5. You want to call for the vote or
As presented.
as presented by Dr. Finch?
Going to call for the vote for the 5 items as Dr. Finch just presented them.
Aye.
Got a second?
Oh, second.
Second. I already voted.
Okay. So now let's vote on that.
Aye.
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 That's 6 ayes or 5.
We'll take it.
That come in as 5, Sheila?
It's like Chicago. Vote early, vote often.
Please don't say that.
Okay.
Moving along to number
To
6.
consent agenda. I move that the governing board approve consent agenda items 6A through 6H.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Oh, I can't press anything. For 7B.
I move that the governing board approve all employee out-of-state travel per governing board policy GCCE.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All right. All those in favor say aye.
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 5 ayes would mean that there is no opportunity for a nay. 7C.
I move that the governing board accept administration's recommendation to pre-approve the addenda as presented.
Second.
Any discussion?
Just like to thank Dr. Galligan for providing the job descriptions. And
All right.
thank you.
Awesome. All those in favor say aye.
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 5 ayes, 0 nays. Let's go to 7D.
I move that the sorry, I'm on the wrong page. I apologize. I move that the governing board accept the administration's recommendation to approve the negotiated solution team's salary recommendation for 2019-20.
I second.
Mr. Miglerino, are you going to tell us about this?
It would be my pleasure, President
Your
Ordway,
pleasure. Awesome.
members of the board, Dr. Finch. As was commented earlier, this is the salary recommendation that was developed by our approved process through the Negotiated Solutions Team, or NST as we like to refer to it as. Just quickly as a reminder, we have 3 representatives from the certified teaching ranks, 3 classified employees, 3 principals or assistant principals, and 3 administrators. The names of the folks that were on the NST this year are listed below. I just wanted to give them recognition. There's a lot of time we spend developing this recommendation. We start early in the year. Here's the meeting schedule back in September. And these, those early meetings are probably not as weighty or heavy as the school year progresses. The meetings tend to get a little bit more meaningful and purposeful in terms of trying to develop the recommendation that's before you this evening. Initially the NST was able to approve the recommendation for the benefit committee, which the board ultimately approved back on April 9th. So we are in the process of going through our employee benefit open enrollment period now. That started yesterday. And just last week, the NST actually approved the recommendation that's before you this evening. And one of the reasons for some of the timing is that we were waiting for the DVEA rep council meeting that was last Tuesday to conclude so that we could get direction from that group. So we met on Wednesday of last week and finalized the recommendation Wednesday evening, and then that's why it ended up Thursday in the update in terms of the timing of everything. One of the things that's worth noting is it is all predicated based on, because the legislature has not sine die or has not completed the session, it's all predicated on whether or not any changes happen relative to what we believe is going to ultimately be the revenue that we'll have available for next year. But there are some assumptions that are made that I just want to make sure we are clear. And there's some trigger language that is built into the recommendation. And ultimately, if we hit a certain milestone with that trigger language, then we just reconvene NST. And we think that some of those triggers will actually be realized. But essentially, the base support level is increased by the inflation amount that's guaranteed because of the passage of Prop 123. We think that we'll be relatively flat in enrollment. Demographer thinks that we'll still be, we still have a large 12th grade class and a relatively small, in comparison to the 12th grade class, kindergarten class. So as we promote those seniors, we have to make up first that difference, the delta between those two grade levels, and then any growth thereafter. So we're planning to for this budget to be essentially flat, and I think again that's a conservative approach. We believe that we'll probably have a small increase again next year, despite the demographer's prediction that we might actually see a slight decline. Remember, he had us at a 0.5% reduction in students this year. Looks like we're going to have a small increase, maybe 1 or 0.2% increase in students for this year. Teacher experience is down slightly. We think this number may change, so this may be one of the numbers that helps provide additional revenue for us, because our number is relatively flat, but the state average increased. And so this funding mechanism in the formula is based on how you compare relative to the state average. And we know when this was first released that several large districts were not reporting, and their traditional TEI number is, or their tenure is less than ours. So when their numbers get added in and the state average should come down, maybe we'll see a little bit of a bump in TEI, or at least recover some of the loss there, because you can see about $632,000 reduction just in the change in teacher experience index. We have $1 million worth of district additional assistance, which is our capital funds that we're moving into M&O to help support M&O needs. This has the budget balance carry forward at $817,000. That's the last M&O monthly report that you saw. As we work on the budget revision for this year, that number will go up considerably. We're estimating it could be as much as $1 million add to this year's budget. We will be bringing that to the board for the May 14th, our next regularly scheduled meeting, the revision that is. How much we actually carry forward will be based on how we finish the year, which we won't know until well after June 30, the end of our fiscal year. We are again, growth is set flat based on our 100th day from this year, and we kept the current staffing standards as they are by grade level. The benefit recommendation that I mentioned previously, that was previously approved, is noted here. And I think what's important to identify is that it cost about $1 million worth of M&O dollars to be able to implement the recommendation that was previously approved by the board. We have a considerable salary increase in the recommendation as well. That is about $7.8 million. And $4.5 million of that is based on the governor's plan, the 20% by year 2020. And so 3.3 of it is from the inflationary increase. I jumped over the state retirement, slight increase on the contribution. That affects not only the employer, but it also will affect our employees. Although the alternative contribution rate for our retirees that come back to work went down slightly. A couple slight adjustments to the district office budget. The Pathways program, which was started this year, will have a budget line for the remainder of this year since we started it in January, and then an entire year will be added into our plan for next year. And then there'll be an increase to the curriculum budget due to the change that we made in the Classroom Site Fund a year ago, having 100% of the Classroom Site Fund go into teacher salary. We've included the professional growth amounts. We've kept the vacation and sick leave buyback the same. We left utilities unchanged, even though there's we are projecting an APS rate increase, but we're trying to offset that with our utility management program and some of our conservation efforts. We do have a slight increase, or I'd say more than slight increase in tuition from $1.4 million to $2.1 million for our students that we can't serve on any of our campuses, leaving our property liability coverage unchanged from this year, but adding to our workman's compensation liability. We're seeing increased number of claims-related expenses, not necessarily safety issues, but the cost of those claims just due to medical inflation. So we're addressing that through other strategies, but we need to cover the expenses. We're self-insured with our workman's comp claim. And then the just caveat note, this is all based on current information. And it's important to note that these are all the assumptions that are kind of baked in, and just kind of at a high level, the assumptions that are baked in to the budget projection that helped the NST group determine how much funds were available to be able to come up with the salary recommendation that we're going to share with you. This is kind of just the details of that monetarily, so you can see about almost $3.3 million as the bottom line there. And the $4.5 million makes up the $7.8 million, the $4.5 million, which is the second line underneath the base support level. Those two amounts make up the $7.8 million in the salary recommendation that we're going to speak to. As mentioned, there is a note there that all increases are pending the final determination of any state legislative action. But we start with professional growth on this page. This number, just for comparative purposes, is down about, I think it was $14,000, $15,000 over last year. We've seen a slow decrease in professional growth earned credits because there are other alternatives for people to look for professional development and get rewarded, most notably our national board certification process. The salary increase is essentially, just kind of summarizing it, just a 5% percentage increase for all three employee groups, and this is something that's been different than what we've seen in the past. So last year, the certified group, the Deer Valley Education Association group, did have a percentage increase for their group. It was 12% for the classroom teachers, the definition of classroom teacher, and 10% for the non-classroom teachers. The difference being the 2% difference being the classroom site fund difference that existed. But the classified group as well as the admin exempt group, they split their increase into a flat increase. 50% of their increase was a flat increase, 50% was a percentage increase in both those two groups' cases. For this recommendation, there was quite a bit of discussion about that, especially when it came to the classified group. Due to salary compression that's happening as a result of minimum wage increases, the percentage increase probably does make sense to be able to create some separation for those that are above the minimum wage. Minimum wage will be increasing from $11 an hour to $12 an hour as of January of next school year, January 2020. We did the math, and essentially at $11.47, 5% gets you right to $12, a 5% increase. So anybody that's making $11.47 or more will get a 5% increase at the beginning of the year. Anybody that's making less than $11.47 will wait until January and get their raise to the minimum wage at $12 as of January for the remainder of the year. It has been noted that the NST, as well as the classified group, DVESPA is their group, needs to work on how to address the salary compression that has happened with minimum wage increases, because even though in what was approved, everybody commonly believed that minimum wage gets increased to $12. It doesn't stop at $12. It will be increased by a cost of living increase annually as well. So we've basically collapsed. I think it's something like 8 ranges. All are making the exact same dollar amount that we're making different dollar amounts in previous years before all these changes. And so some of that may make sense in terms of collapsing some of those lower ranges that we weren't motivated to do prior, but we are going to need to address that. It was not addressed in this salary recommendation. And then for the certified admin group, again, last year their raise was split between a flat increase and a percentage increase, and this year the recommendation is for a percentage increase. In some ways to deal with some of the compression that's happening between most notably school administration and some of the teaching staff, because they have received a percentage increase at least last year. It hasn't always been that way. And the way that the process works, we divide the pot between the pot of available funds between each of the groups, and then annually they can determine how they want their percentage to be determined, whether it's a flat or percentage increase. So that's actually in our process for that to be decided by each group individually. I think I've mentioned everything on this page with the exception of the change in the bus driver pay. And so moving them from range 22 to range 25 would be a 95-cent per hour increase for all bus drivers, so that's existing bus drivers. And this would be in addition to the 5% raise for that group. So that would give them, we feel, a more competitive advantage to try and fill some of the bus driver vacancy positions that we continue to struggle with. And the group was unanimous about making sure that that was included in the salary recommendation. We just note what the increase is for those that are classroom stipend eligible. So it's a 0.1% increase due to the allocation increasing from up to $434 per weighted student count. And again, 100% of Fund 13 or the menu money is now in teacher salary, as it was for this year as well. And then we get into some of the trigger language. So the first $400,000 above that budget estimate or projection that I showed you would go to increase hard-to-fill addenda for our special education-related positions and nurses. Their hard-to-fill addenda is the greater of the existing hard-to-fill addenda that they had when we implemented hard-to-fill for all positions that fell within the category, or $2,000 per FTE. We would increase that from $2,000 to $3,000. So again, anybody that has a hard-to-fill addenda greater than $3,000 would be held harmless, but anybody that had a $2,000 FTE, and we say per FTE in case it's a part-time position, we just do the math so that it's equitable. We would increase it from $2,000 per FTE to $3,000 per FTE. That would be the first $400,000 in addition to the $3.2 million that we were showing in the projection on the previous slide. The additional, the next $200,000 would change the bus driver range from range 25, which was previously in the recommendation, to range 27. That's another 75-cent increase for our bus driving position. And at that point, I think some of the NST folks decided that they may even consider driving a bus. We're getting a much more competitive hourly rate by doing that. Again, as we have mentioned on a number of occasions, we have the equipment to be able to run the routes. We just don't have the bodies to be able to do it. And we think that making these adjustments will actually help. And then finally, if we get, and this is pretty standard language, if we get at least a 0.5%, what would be the equivalent of a 0.5% raise for all the employee groups combined, in this case $850,000, we would reconvene NST to be able to decide how we would allocate those funds. And Anything less than that, so if it was $725,000, we would just roll that into our carry forward for the following year. So it still would be privy to NST, the NST process. It just would be in a future year as opposed to be changed for the current year. And I think as we work through the process, one of the ways that we build to the recommendation is actually addressing the interests of each group. All of the interests of the group were addressed with this recommendation. The only one that's not specifically mentioned in this recommendation is the social emotional supports that was requested by 2 of the employee groups. And the reason why it wasn't addressed here per se was due to the fact that we have other plans in place with outside agencies to provide those social emotional supports. And so the group thought that that those efforts were going to at least provide the help that they were looking for, and they'd like to see how those supports play out before they make a financial commitment to any of those things. But one of the things that were, I think, in everybody's list was addressing salary increases and maintaining benefits so that those didn't get eroded. I think all of those were addressed. Not, I think everybody would have liked to see something maybe, a bigger raise or, benefits not changing at all. That wasn't the case, but we were able to minimize those. And then we certainly wanted to address how to deal with the hard-to-fill positions, bus drivers, nurses, special education, those types of positions. And you can see that those are addressed all in what you see here. So just in terms of next steps, we have this on the board for consideration this evening. We would like to bring back on the 14th the salary schedules so that we can start to recruit for some of those vacancies. And we would also be bringing back, as I mentioned earlier, the budget revision for this current year, fiscal year 19. Sometime in June, we hope to have the proposed budget before you. We say sometime in June only because this will be dependent on not only the legislative action and them completing their work, but also the Auditor General making all the corresponding changes to the required forms for us to be able to present that to you. And then before July 15th, we have to formally adopt our budget. And I didn't note it here, but another reason for us bringing this back or bringing this before the board this evening, we don't have another meeting until May 14th, another regularly scheduled meeting until May 14th. Having it considered this evening would allow us the opportunity to get our classified appointments sent out to our employees. It's the one group that has not received their employment agreements for next year. So to help honor and value the work that they provide, we would like to get them their employment agreements for next year as soon as possible. So sometime, and I haven't talked to our payroll benefit and human resources folks, but pending the outcome of this evening, if this is approved, we would schedule getting the appointments to our classified employees in the next week or so.
Are you ready for questions?
I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, I've got 3 and then everyone else. First one is, do you have an estimated time when we would find out the true number for the teacher experience index?
President
I know it's hard for you, but...
Yeah, President Ordway, we're at the mercy of the Arizona Department of Education recalculating that. And all of the numbers that go into our budget are subject to change because they're all predicated on next year's actual student count or average daily membership. So the number is going to change. I don't know how much the TEI is going to change over time. And I think the Department of Education has to wait for every district in the state, all 220 of them, to be able to submit their information to be able to determine what the average is. So I'm not trying to point the blame at one person. I just think that number will change, but I think it will change ever so slightly.
Okay. Second is the social emotional requests that were made, or were those referring to counselors, social workers, or was it something else?
President Ordway, yeah, I think it was generally campus-based support for social emotional needs for students, yes.
in a personnel in a human resource.
Yes, in some
Okay.
sort of human capital.
Okay. And then my third is when this proposal was made. Was it thumbs up by all groups inside? All parts of the NST?
Yes, everybody supported. So we vote with our thumbs,
Yes,
right?
that's why I said, was it all thumbs up?
Yeah, and so I can't say that we were 100% thumbs up, but there were no thumbs down related to the recommendation.
And you have a sideways thumb?
You can have a sideways thumb.
All right. I will now stop hogging questions. Ms. Frank?
So to just sort of extend on Ms. Ordway's question, could you explain how each employee group ratified the agreement? How did the members of each group?
So
Oh, sorry. To that point, sorry, before you start, Mr. Miglorino, because my question is along Ms. Frank's question, and I'd really love it if Ms. Leyva would actually come to the microphone and answer the question for her group, if that would be okay with the board.
Sure.
And Mr. Miglorino, thank you.
And if there's representatives from the other groups,
Yep. Yeah.
explain.
I
That would be
will.
helpful.
Okay, we'll start with
Understand.
Ms. Leyva.
BLT's here too.
Yeah. Not as,
Come on up.
not as,
Tell us the process.
Can you start with your process, Ms. Leyva?
Yes. So, after every third Tuesday, as you know, the Council of Reps meets for DVEA, and we always bring them up to date with the most recent news from NST. Our ratification vote
Can you move the microphone closer to your mouth, please?
Our ratification vote is done. It was done last week during our regularly scheduled third Tuesday meeting. And it's done, I think there were close to 50, 60 people in the room, all representing all schools. And an hour and a half discussion later, we ratified the salary package as Jim described.
Sorry.
Um,
Sorry.
questions?
Can I ask a question of
Sure.
her? How do you ensure that all schools are present or represented at that meeting?
We have a sign-in sheet where people are expected to initial next to their name, and or if they're a guest or new to the meeting, then they can sign in on a guest sheet prior to sitting down. We have how do you say, like a expectation at the door that you sign your name prior to you sitting inside the meeting.
Okay, so I have a follow-up question. I'm sorry, Ms. Frank.
Oh no, go ahead.
Does that mean that the person who is there is the association representative for that campus, or could they just be attending the meeting on their own?
They could be a rep or they could be a DVA member attending that meeting, because they, as soon as they get the information from every meeting, they report out during their staff time. DVA is the standing item on the agenda, so every person who attends the staff meeting is aware of what DVEA knows, since we bargain on their behalf.
Okay, but it doesn't mean that the association representative for that campus was at that meeting, correct? I'm trying to understand the process and.
If the rep couldn't make it, then they're allowed to appoint a proxy,
Okay.
come on their behalf.
Classified?
oh,
Do we have
does anyone else have questions? Ms. Reed? For Maria?
Ms. Leyva, when you took the vote,
Yes.
was it a unanimous vote or was it split?
It was. Now I have to go to Kelly. I'm trying to remember. I think it was unanimous, if not over 80%. No?
Ms. Fisher, if you know, but if you don't know and you don't want to, but we want you to come up if you have the information in your laptop.
Kelly's going to pull up the minutes.
would be
It was
office.
majority.
Thank you.
We'll pull up the exact percentage.
And to clarify, were you only voting on the salary recommendation for your group, not for the total package?
Interestingly, no. We were voting on, we voted on ours, of course,
Okay.
which was the main vote, and then we also had suggestions for the other two. We agreed with the package for classified, but for admin, a recommendation came out of that meeting that they be differentiated like the certified staff are between the classroom teachers and the non-classroom, we'll call them, like the nurses, psychologists, counselors, OTPTs. And that was our suggestion that resulted from that meeting. We can only provide a suggestion since BLT negotiates on their own behalf.
I have a question. Are you saying that now that counselors are part of BLT, I thought you guys represented all the certified?
Yes, we do. But when we looked at all administrative, there was an interest among the certified group to differentiate the administration group between the campus-based administration and the district office and or non-campus-based administration.
So, I've got to wrap my head around this. So you're representing the certified staff,
Correct.
which includes nurses, psychologists, OP or OTs, PTs, because I remember all of this very well from that little
Social
table we
workers,
had in
yeah.
the middle of that year. Yet, your suggestion came out for BLT to separate them, even though you're representing them. So, is that what you just said?
Yes.
Are they aware of that?
Yes, we did report that back out to NST, to the BLT group.
No. Did you make the certified people that are in that plan that you represent, but you want in that plan, are they aware that they're not part of the plan even though they are?
Okay, I think we're getting, yeah. Kelly's going to help explain. It was
Be awesome.
very unexpected what occurred.
Hello. Ooh, yikes.
Wow.
Sorry.
Could you not talk right into that microphone?
So I have a motion that we have in the minutes that might clarify, because I think actually Ms. Leyva misspoke. So the motion was made to give all site-based administrators a 5% raise and 3% raise to district office administration. But that was not including, she misspoke, that was not the counselors and things like that. They're with us. So that was just
Okay, just wanted to clear that
yeah.
up. Thank you.
Could you maybe provide some clarification as to why your group made that recommendation? And also, when you're in the NST meetings and not ratifying with your group, are you looking at the whole picture rather than just your little, like the whole pie rather than just your little slice?
That's a better way to put it, that when we ratified not only ours, we looked at the whole package that you just saw. So the conversation and eventually the motion happened quite organically. I think we'd have to talk to the people in the room, but it's my impression that they, how do you say, there's a closer attachment to the administration at that school from the certified who work alongside them. So they wanted to seek to differentiate that group. But again, it's a recommendation because we don't represent them.
Right.
But I think it was just a wish by the certified in the room, by the reps representing their schools, to appreciate their principals at their schools maybe a little more regarding their salary. It's really hard to describe since it just happened. Somebody made a motion, we discussed it, and it eventually became a suggestion to the BLT, which we shared with them when the NST reconvened the following day.
Okay. Thank you.
Mrs. O'Brien?
When prior to your Tuesday meeting where there were representatives from different campuses, does the notification go out to all certified staff? Can you explain that process to me?
I will talk a little bit away from the microphone this time. Yes, I am do all the correspondence, so it goes out to all certified, and everyone is welcome to come to the meeting, whether they're a site leader, a member, or a prospective member. The only thing that the prospective members can't do is they cannot be in the room if we're in executive session, or when they can't vote. So we did have a couple of people who are not members that came and participated in the conversation, but were not able to vote.
Okay, and does that mean that 100% of certified staff in Deer Valley
Yes,
received an invitation to that meeting?
Yes, all of my emails go out to all certified.
And all certified have the opportunity to share their views with DVEA, even though if they're not members, they may not vote. But they do have the opportunity to share their views and their opinions with the reps who are negotiating on their behalf.
Correct. That's the definition of representation. So they are expected, member or no, to share with them their thoughts, because all of that information that we share prior to the voting goes out to the reps that they can make copies and share with their constituents, with the whole staff. They can post it on the copier on bulletin boards. DVA does have a bulletin board at every school. In fact, we also had to remind some schools that attempted to schedule a meeting on the third Tuesday, especially this third Tuesday. A meeting went out close to 2 weeks prior to this very important meeting, and still some principals tried to schedule a staff meeting during that time, and we had to respectfully request that they reschedule.
Okay, so all certified are represented by a DVA member or not, and it's not a secret club that some people get to be a part of and others don't.
No, it is not, and that's included in board policy that we represent all certified.
Okay, thank you.
Mrs. Reed?
Out of curiosity, with the recommendation to decrease admin raises from 5% to 3%, was there discussion of what you wanted to see done with the additional 2%?
Yes.
Yes, we wanted to take the additional money and apply it to the bus driver situation.
Mrs. O'Brien?
And just to clarify, my understanding was it was only a decrease to non-campus based admin. So it was a differentiation. It wasn't a total decrease to admin across the board.
Correct.
Anyone else? If it's for DVEA, go ahead.
Well, I'm just curious if the NST had this information, or if just Dr. Finch, or if Mr. Miglerino. In reading the board report, and I was, of course, discussing that our teachers certified were 4% lower than our peers on the Auditor General report. Dr. Finch said that we're 4% or more below our peers in all positions. So do we have data? Were you guys aware of data to that effect, or do we have data to that effect we could send me for all positions?
Actually, that's national. As I was explaining in the Friday update, it was more of a system concept. In every school district in America, everything is built off the teacher, forward and backwards. So that's where you get your administrators from. That's where you get your support staff from. That's true in every state. And so the teacher is the center of negotiations. So if my assumption was that if you're 4% in relationship to your peers, then you're probably 4% in your whole system. And the reason I know this is true is because of compression. So once we try to fix different problems in our system, we create compression on both ends. And that's what we're seeing today. So, go ahead.
It would be helpful to me to see some data that shows that in every single position we're 4% or more lower than our peers, if you guys could get me that data, because
the problem with that is it's so hard to, because our systems are different sizes, we classify different, we code different. Mr. Miglerino could fill us in there, but it's, I don't know, you want to jump on that?
I'd be happy to. President Ordway, Ms. Tweedy, it gets wrapped up in titles and trying to figure out what responsibilities everybody has. So our poster child for this happens to be human resources and payroll and benefits for us. So payroll and benefits handles our benefit package in our district, and in most of our comparable districts, that function, benefits, is actually an HR function. And so you have to, if you're going to compare how many people you have or the responsibilities that they have, you have to know what functions they perform. And so it's not just as simple as making a direct comparison between one director or coordinator or manager, whatever title you might use. You have to look at what functions they perform.
Okay, but what I'm going to say into this statement, whatever we approve, I have to explain my vote. And I have to explain my vote to the public. And I do appreciate your recommendation, and I appreciate, and clearly, if every employee here is 4% or greater underpaid compared to our peers, obviously giving the same amount to every group makes a lot of sense. So I just need some data to support that. If we can't just make stuff up without data to support it and then go out and tell people this and expect them to be happy with our explanations. I mean, so if that's true, then clearly this makes a lot of sense, and it does not make sense to separate the district. The reason why I'm not sure that it's true, and it may be true, is I have a staffing report I've been requesting to review for a year, and nobody will do it, but that doesn't say that's true. But maybe there's other data that I would need to see. I do know that we've brought managers in at extremely high salaries, and I'm not going to elaborate because it would be inappropriate to say it here, but in most districts, a principal and a director is a lateral move, not a principal and a manager. So since we're the only district that I know of that moves principals regularly to manager positions and lets them keep their salary or increase their salary, I would have a hard time believing that we're 4% behind our peers on that. But if the data shows that, then clearly I would support this. I'm just asking for data because I'm not going to I can't go out, advocate with legislatures for more money, say I voted for this. And you know, and I know, when you give a large admin increase, you get asked questions. If we pay all our admin 5% less than everyone else and somebody wants to send me documentation that I can consider,
We can get that.
then I can justify it.
That's we can get close to probably what you're looking for, but yeah.
Yeah, so we have, we do have some data on starting salaries. Even though it wouldn't be the salaries per se for the group, but just because some of this is off the salary schedule. And so for our deputy superintendents, 15% behind the peer districts, 3% behind Director 2 and Director 1 positions, and 6% behind manager positions.
I want to actually see what people are making, though, because I do know that the years that, and I saw this, that the teachers did not get raises or were flat. I saw a lot of people getting reclassified during those years and getting raises that everyone else did not get. It happened every summer. It was reclassification season. So I would actually want this to be based on actual salaries.
It is difficult to go out into the community, and again, we speak with some conservative legislators regularly, as well as members of the community, and they are going to ask us, and we need to show them the numbers. If this is true, I agree with Ms. Tweedy, this recommendation makes sense. But if it's a situation where some admin are 4% less and other admin are not, then differentiation would make sense, and we need to justify our votes to the community. So, and I do recall years that teachers got pay cuts because classroom site fund went down, and I don't recall, did admin get pay cuts those same years?
President Ordway.
I know
Ms.
2 years because I still have the contracts from my
But
No,
days.
there was,
let Mr.
for about 10
Miglerino
years
answer
there were
that
cuts,
question,
so-
please.
So,
Jim, go ahead.
Before I was here.
President Ordway, Ms. Frank, no, but also the admin and classified group never got classroom site fund added to their salaries either when it was originally added.
Right.
But no, there was not a corresponding decrease to the classroom site, to the non-classroom site fund eligible positions.
Yeah,
But can I add to
Go
that
ahead.
point? So
Brian.
with that being said, because I want to make sure I'm understanding correctly, there was a decrease in the classroom site fund, so that would have meant a decrease to our certified staff in the classroom. Because because our administrators and our classified do not receive classroom site fund, there would have been no correlating decrease, correct?
President Ordway and Ms. O'Brien, that is correct.
Or an increase. So but when there's an increase in the classroom site fund, the teachers get an increase, or certified, sorry, but the other two groups would not, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So, and can I also ask that there were years when there were some reclassifications of administrators, but there were also years we were cutting administrative positions and combining duties. Is that correct, Mr. Miglerino?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I just I want to move on to DVESPA, so DVESPA can tell us what their role was in NST. Thank you, Dennis.
DVESPA takes a vote from the board, so I believe this year's vote was 4-0. As a fifth member, we've lost our fifth member to the board, so it was 4-0.
So,
Do you have a question for
yeah, so do your members get any input, or does your board just vote unilaterally?
The board votes, the members do not vote.
What input do the members have? How is this communicated out to your members?
Whatever
The members just rely on the
whatever
board members they've
the
elected?
members have to share when they come to meetings, which most members, I guess we're doing a great job because most members choose not to come to the meetings. So whatever they share via myself or other board members with phone calls or just in passing, information is shared with the members.
Can I ask why this information's not communicated out to them to provide input?
It is communicated out to them. We get their feedback from them, and I
Okay.
guess I was talking with Dr. Finch about this last week in our monthly meeting, and I guess we must be doing a good job because nobody seems to be complaining or want to replace us. So we must be doing a good job for them. So
How's it
I-
communicated to them, though? I guess I'm missing what you're saying.
not only in phone calls when they call one of the board members, or the emails that we have, or any number of ways, just in passing. I mean, we all go to a lot of different sites, so we see a lot of different people.
Yeah, I was going to say, let's move to BLT. Thank you, Dr. Miller.
President Orway, governing board members, Dr. Finch. We do, as far as, I was going to start with a breakout, but we get seek input from our colleagues on what they would want us to bring to the NST. We provide that to them. And then, like for this proposal that we have here, we haven't had that chance to go and ask for that ratification, so that would, at this time, would just be from our board. We do get breakouts through our region meetings, so there's a BLT member at each region meeting to get that information out to our constituents so we can get their feedback. For this particular one, we knew that our constituents with their vote or with their suggestions said that we would stick with a 5% raise across the board. That is why we stuck with that. If that makes sense, or if you have any questions.
Mrs. Reed, sorry.
Dr. Miller, did I hear you correctly that you said that your group did not ratify this? Or did I
Since
mishear?
it just happened, and I do need to clarify, last week I was out of town, so I was not at this particular meeting. But this information, to my knowledge, has not gone out yet to our constituents to have them say yes, no. We as a board did agree with that. That goes back to more DVESPA, but we didn't have the time to bring everyone together since our breakouts are at our region meetings, and that happened once a month.
So in your region meetings prior to the last meeting, BLT looked for a 5% across the board raise.
Again, we did a survey, and those were that was information of they had choices of, do we want to see salary increase, do we want, and they had different options. They could tell us a salary increase was what was given to us. So that is the reason when we came back with when there was a 5% increase. I'll even say this: in the past, when it was a 50-50 split, that wasn't a 5% increase for some colleagues. They may have gotten a 2.5, or some got more. So that is why we stuck firm with that 5%, with that feedback that we'd gotten from our constituents.
Mrs. O'Brien?
I'm good.
Okay, so the Jim's, so the three associations, and you were the facilitator, I'm guessing, right? Administrative?
President Ordway, correct. And so there are 3 administrators, district level administrators that also serve on it, and I facilitate the group.
Okay. Is it Trevor? Okay.
Yeah, Mr. Edinburgh and Ms. Moffitt.
Okay. So the last meeting, this recommendation was formed and decided upon, correct?
That is correct.
And it was mostly thumbs up, no thumbs down,
That is correct.
and that's why it's here.
That is correct. And I think one of the things I just wanted to add, because of the conversation regarding the discussion, the group did talk about the 3% recommendation that DVEA suggested, and one of the reasons why the recommendation ended up the way you see it this evening is because several of our peer or comparable districts have already determined their salary recommendation for their group, and we're seeing a much more consistent percentage increase for all employee groups from other districts. And so we also had this conversation about how do we stay competitive amongst those peer districts, and so that's why we were thinking a percentage increase for all 3 employee groups would help us at least keep pace with what other districts were doing. And our neighbors to the east are able to do a little bit more in terms of a percentage increase, a 6% increase instead of a 5% increase, but still a percentage increase across the board for all their employee groups. So that was part of the discussion, as well as to be able to say, how do we remain consistent with a competitive advantage, if you will, to other districts.
So after that suggestion was brought up, and then you got circled back to the 5% across, that was agreed on by the 3 groups? Bless you.
President Orway,
Almost
yes.
bless you. Yes, okay. Ms. Tweedy.
Mr. Miglorino, could you tell us what our peer districts are trying to do for each employee group?
President
Or
Ordway,
someone.
Ms. Tweedy, I don't have all the employee groups, but I have talked to some of my colleagues, most of which are doing some sort of percentage increase. Like I said, our friends in Mesa are doing a percentage increase for 2 of their groups. Their classified group, they're just doing a straight $1 per hour for all their classified employees. I don't know what that breaks out to on a percentage.
I would
basis.
like information on what our peers are doing, specifically for each group that we know of. Do you know anything? Anybody else up there?
Yeah, I was sharing that with you. Are you suggesting that you want that in written form?
Well, yeah, because you're just saying Mesa. Like, I really do want to see that.
I have some stuff when I was at Nivik, but yeah, what Mr. Miglorino was saying is correct. That's what I saw in pattern in the different districts. So, but mainly the bigger ones were like that.
I want to see our peers who we're compared with by the Auditor General.
It would be helpful to see the actual numbers with the names of the specific
Yep.
districts, so
And
to have specific
remember,
information.
yeah, these are all their best guesses. So yeah,
Ms. Reed? Mrs.
because
Reed.
the governor hasn't drawn the line yet, but yeah, we can find that.
So, for my fellow governing board members, did any of you receive any input via email or reaching out from anybody regarding the recommendations for salary increase?
I did not receive any emails from any groups regarding this.
No.
I received
I
nothing.
didn't either.
I have a couple of more questions.
Mrs. O'Brien, please go.
The hard to fill addenda that you refer to in the report about if there's additional funds being increased from $2,000 to $3,000, would that just be for special education positions?
Yeah, President Ordway, Ms. O'Brien, it's all special education related positions, so part of our student support services positions and nurses.
And are there other positions that are receiving currently $3,000 in hard to fill addenda?
There are other positions that are getting, the rest of the hard to fill addendas are set at $2,000 or what their hard to fill addenda was prior. Remember, hard to fill addenda were given as years of service, up to 10 years of service. So some of those can be much more than $2,000 or $3,000. I think the largest one is somewhere in the $16,000 to $17,000, $18,000 range. But when we establish a hard to fill addenda for all the hard to fill positions, it's a flat $2,000 amount.
Okay. Can I get more information about what he was just saying in a board update for those positions? I don't think that I was aware of that, so if I could better understand it rather than digging into it right now. The starting teacher salary will be increased by 4%. Does that keep us at a higher starting teacher salary than our comparable districts? Do we know? Or do we know, and does it?
One of the challenges in getting any of this information is all of us don't know exactly what's happening with the legislature. So a lot of this is tentative. Some of them are further along in the process than we are. But we're not increasing the beginning teacher salary by 4%. We're increasing it to $40,250. That keeps a $700 differential between a second-year teacher and a first-year teacher, which is the step that we give if we were to provide that to somebody with with 1 year of experience and we were to hire them in their second year.
Okay, and thank you for correcting that. I looked at the wrong note in the presentation. So what we're not really certain, given where we're at in the process, if that will keep us at a higher or competitive, given where we're at.
President Ordway, Ms. O'Brien, I think it just depends on who you want to compare ourselves to. I think last year Peoria School District may have taken a pass on increasing their starting teacher salary,
Okay.
Which I think they're regretting from my casual conversations with them. So I don't know what they're going to do. They might have to make up for 2 years worth of not adjusting or not significantly adjusting their starting teacher pay. And other districts pay more than we do, especially if you talk about the East Valley.
Sure. And then you talked about the 3-week break between meetings because we don't meet again until May 14th, which is 3 calendar weeks. What will that do to the classified staff contracts going out? And how does that help us or hurt us in filling our openings? And maybe we need, Mrs. Moffett, sorry, we need a bigger table now for that, if she might join us.
Well, and also, is it possible to have this item at the meeting when we review SPED?
At the study session.
Yeah. Add this to the agenda.
Well, let's answer one question at a time. I think the answer to your questions will come out.
The question regarding the timing,
Yes.
let me take that one first.
Thank you.
And we have an obligation to our classified employees to give them a 2-week notice for their continuing employment status for next year. So if you take the least common denominator, that would be the last day being the 23rd for some of our 9-month classified employees. And we would need to make that notification to them by the 9th of May, which is a Thursday.
Okay.
And so we have to give them some expectation of their continuing status within 2 weeks of their last day.
Okay.
That can be done a number of ways. We prefer to do it by issuing their appointment to them.
Okay.
So if we didn't have this straightened out.
Ms. Tweedy,
I had a couple. more
She
from Ms.
wasn't
Moffett.
done, and then
Oh.
Ms. Frank was going, and you
But he
guys
didn't
can
finish
switch.
his thought, like it doesn't make sense.
Well,
I was just curious about the vacancies and filling those, the delay of waiting or approving tonight. If you have a professional opinion, Ms. Moffett.
Be dependent on the candidate. Currently, we staff all classified and certified positions with the current salary, and we let them know that the budget is still pending and the salary recommendation is still pending. It does cause frustration, both do. If you look at the Communication Council questions for Human Resources, I think nearly all of them are around contracts not having next year's salary in them. Even though we've done that for quite a few years, it still causes some frustration that they don't know what the salary is going to be for next year, and that also can be frustrating for a candidate that is considering our district.
Okay, thank you.
Frank?
So I think you partially answered my question earlier, Mr. Migliorio. It was around salary compression with increasing the new teacher pay. And I think you did, but is this going to create a problem? I think it's great to increase new teacher pay, but is that going to create a salary compression with our first and second year teachers, or our first year teachers moving to their second year? And you may have already addressed that a little bit in an earlier answer.
Yeah, so President Ordway, Ms. Frank, so we purposely set the starting salary to make sure that there's a $700 differential, that our continuing second-year teacher will make $700 more than the beginning teacher salary at $40,250.
Okay, I thought that's what you said. I just wanted to clarify and make sure I understood it. Thank you. That was my question.
So back to what you were saying, were you saying you can't give them an appointment unless we do this, or what were you trying to, it didn't make sense.
No, President Ordway, Ms. Tweedy, what I was trying to convey is that we have to give them notice of their continuing status within 2 weeks of their last day. That can be done a number of ways. Our preference is to issue their appointment, and issuing their appointment one time with a salary increase is preferred, or it can be done via an official notice that we send to them. So it doesn't even have to be their appointment, but I will tell you that sending them a note that says, you know, we want you back for next year without any information, those have been challenged in the past, successfully challenged, meaning that we wouldn't be able to necessarily defend ourselves by just saying, yes, we're going to have you back without the board providing, you know, official action in the appointment that we would issue them. So we can, just like we do with our certified group, we could just issue them an appointment with their hourly rate that they have this year and then revise it moving forward. But since we don't have the same timeline that's built in statute for certified staff, we try and wait to see if by chance we have this resolved so that we issue one appointment to them, because we are talking about probably just over 2,000 appointments that we'll have to issue.
Okay, so Jim, if you could just, I just want to close the circle, I guess, or open up another one. So we have NST, we have our 3 groups that negotiate the salaries, correct? You've spent meetings, hours, broken bread with each other, put thumbs up, thumbs down, sideways, but came up with a majority or unanimous between the 3 groups that this was the recommendation that all 3 groups wanted after they thoroughly research, talk, discuss, go back and forth, and this is what they are presenting to us that they would like to see approved. Am I misspeaking somewhere?
President Ordway, that is correct. That is the process.
Okay, and we've had this process in Deer Valley for our employee groups to bring us the approval, hoping for us to make a final decision unless we see something really wacky that they might not have seen in all the hours and research that you've done.
Yeah, President Ordway, I don't have the exact date because it's the title has changed over the
Correct.
years. I mean, it was IBN, it was been NST, it was Win-Win. But it's more than a decade that we've been following this process to bring the salary recommendation to the board.
Okay, and I just want to ask one more time. So all 3 groups gave the approval to give us this recommendation as a salary recommendation.
President Ordway, that is correct.
And the three groups are here. Is that all correct? I see 1, 2, 3. Where's Lynn? 3 thumbs up. All right. Thank you. Anybody else have any questions?
I don't have a question. I do just have a statement. I do respect the NST process. I, of course, was a member of DVA on their exec board for several years, and I do respect all 3 employee groups. I find myself in a slightly different position here as a governing board member because I feel like I need that information that they had before I vote. And I don't feel like I have the sufficient data as we talked about on the 4% pay gap for all employee groups. I would like to see that before I vote. To me, that's part of governance, and that's my role here as a board member, which was not my role as an employee or as a member of DVA. So that's my statement.
Ms. Tweedy, did you want to say something?
Yeah, well, I'm just gonna go through what I would like to see this week, so I don't expect anyone to answer me here and now. But I went through when Dr. Finch's reasons why we wouldn't be able to address the 4% deficit our certified employees have in the Auditor General's report. So one of the things was, and I just need to understand these, because I do get asked about that frequently. We offer better benefits than our peers in some areas, so I want to know what areas we offer better benefits and how much, and what areas we don't offer better benefits. We have legacy cost, our peers don't. Does this mean our peers have no legacy cost? Or if they do, how much? Or are we the only district that has legacy cost? Also, compression, I was a little bit wondering with the salary compression, if we have other reasons for salary compression, not just minimum wage, because I do know I've asked in the past the process for hiring administrators, and we look at their old salary and that they were making other places, and we bring them in at that. We don't do that for other groups as much. We have like the 5 years of service for certified. So what that would do is compress the administrators who started with Deer Valley. So I'm thinking it might be our structure, and also not having, unless we do have a top end, do we have a top end all of our admin salary, like directors now, or do we just have bottom ends? Because I didn't see top ends on some of those positions. So that would be a question I would have. And what impact that has. So the other thing was, in terms, actually I'll bring that up later because that's not pertaining to that. So anyway, those would be the questions I would want to know before I vote on it, because I do anticipate being asked about these things. And I do appreciate what NST does, but I do believe it's our job to hear the input, consider the input, but then at the end of the day, I also have to answer to all the taxpayers. I have to answer to all the legislatures when I go out and advocate for funding, and I have to explain how we are spending. And I do anticipate a lot of opposition to our bond and override, and I need to be prepared to explain how we spend our money and how we need money for our students. So I would need those questions before I can make a vote like this.
I would like to say thank you to everybody on NST for the time and dedication that you put forth this school year. I think that when we talk about pay raises, I think it's important that our board is united in what we're doing. I think it sends a strong message to all 3 of our employee classes that we care about what the job that you're doing, that we value you, that we value the time and dedication you put into the classrooms, you put into our schools, and you put into running our district efficiently and running schools efficiently. So it, and let me figure out how to phrase this. It is important to me that we all have enough information to make the best educated decision that we can. I know that all employee groups did vote in for this, I would like, since I didn't get any emails, and I don't think any of the board got any emails from any stakeholder groups, I would like the opportunity to hear from stakeholders myself to see if anybody has any other thoughts or differing opinions. I would be interested in gathering that information as well. So that's my sense.
It was more like 5 cents, but that's okay. Mrs. O'Brien?
The next study session is scheduled for when?
21st.
There's at least
Of
one
April?
Tuesday in May we're not spending together, isn't there?
Oh, 21st of May.
Correct.
We have a meeting on the 14th. We have the study session on the 21st. We have graduations on the 20th and the 24th.
Yep. TikTok.
Motions on the 22nd.
Yep. Time is not slowing down at the
And
end
on the
here.
28th.
Pressing. And if you're leaning towards putting those two topics on the same thing, I would not recommend that, just because we spent literally 18 months on this topic, and that's the reason why we separated it. It needs this futures presentation needs its own day.
Yeah, I do recall last year we had an item that was a preview. I think it was the Red for Ed resolution that we had on as a discussion, and then we had a separate special meeting.
Yeah, I was just
To
going to say, what are we
consider
doing
that.
next Tuesday?
Yeah, that I don't disagree with you that you could. I'm just not recommending it. I just think it's a weighty topic. These are two heavy weights.
No,
No,
you
what-
misunderstand. Last
That was-
year,
This one item.
when we
if-
did, just like we did for Red for Ed, the resolution,
We had a singular meeting.
we had
that
a
just
singular
dealt with
meeting
that.
that was
Right,
that
just
one
for that
issue.
one topic.
That's what they're talking about, is
And
having.
Not that anyone's not busy or their calendars aren't filled. What's,
I have an appointment. I can. Is that a Tuesday?
I don't, what's next Tuesday?
April 30th is next Tuesday.
It's very possible that I will not be here as well.
Right.
I might be in Michigan.
Yes. Oh, 'cause your mother-in-law.
Yeah. I'd say it's 60-40.
Is the 7th a possibility?
Well, it doesn't always have to be a Tuesday.
No, I mean, I'm just saying, is the 7th?
It is a Tuesday.
Would that give payroll and benefits time to issue the appointments to classified, because we'd want to have this decided by May 9th, unless we wanted to break up the salary recommendations and
I want to know how long is it going to take us to synthesize information that they're going to give us that we've asked for. That would be the first thing. How long will it take us to process
How long
that?
will it take to get it?
yeah, how long will it take to get
yeah.
the
Yeah,
information?
this will be this. You don't pull this information from a computer. These are all phone calls you're gonna have to make.
Right, and my other concern, or I shouldn't say my other concern. I should start with: did we not try to get salary information from our peers already once before, to have a direct position-to-position comparison, so we could say this human resources person versus this human resource person in other districts? And we received minimal information, but not a lot. Is that correct? We just did that last year.
President Ordway, Ms. O'Brien, that is correct. We tried to do that as part of the efficiency study, and we were only able to get a limited amount of information.
Okay, so
I have a question, though. Isn't that a public record? Like, we could public records request it, right? Salaries for public employees, so they really can't keep that information from us.
It doesn't mean that they're going to
right, but
process their public record request in a day or two.
Well, I'm
It could
just
take
saying,
them 3
when
months.
when we paid for this study, they could have got that information. I mean, I don't understand this.
Again, I think one of the complications is the public records request is to provide the information that they have, and so they could provide, this is, Sue Smith's salary as, manager of all things important, but we don't know what that job does, right? I mean, so we would need much more information than they might have as a public record to disclose. But we could do a public records request for somebody's salary.
I mean, we can't just sit there and say every position's 4% underpaid and have no data to support it, and then when someone asks a question, go, well, we could never compare that information and expect the public to be satisfied with this.
What
And-
information can we get?
I'm thinking the best you're going to get is phone calls and asking favors. And this time of year is crazy, Bill. All of Jim's people are that look just like him are doing the exact
Well, they're
same
not
thing.
as
They're
handsome
scrambling
as
this
you.
time of year trying to get stuff done, and all the people that look like Miss Jenna, they're doing the exact same thing. This is crazy time. So, and I think last year we ran into that. That was part of the efficiency study problem too. Is a couple of them were missing superintendents. A couple of them were. It was happened at the end of the year. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it this is a really bad time to get good information without pulling in favors.
But Dr. Finch, I'm slightly frustrated by this because I've emailed you for months. I asked you to put it on the agenda. I asked with the external audit for it to be on the agenda. I got back, how does this, we have had the staffing report for over a year. I got back, how does this align with our strategic plan? I said, I want us to be on the same page with the budget. I want to understand this. I need to have this discussion. And I was completely blown off.
Remember,
I don't know by
I'm
who.
I'm not in charge of the board's agenda. I bring the suggestions to the board, and that's part of the.
I made the request at a meeting. Ms. Ordway told me to email you. I emailed you, and I could read the email I received back. And it was like, how does this align with our mission and vision? It was a real... Anyway, and I responded to that, and I explained to you that we had a statutory obligation to approve a budget with information, and you said you'd pass that on, and I said, then let's put it on with the external and internal auditor, so report, and it was not done. And I'm not saying it's you. I know you don't set the agenda, but now here we are, and here we're hearing the same thing, and it's extremely frustrating.
Well, we had a specific meeting where we talked to it for.
Did not
an
put the
hour and
staffing
a half.
report on it. It was left off, and I even asked why it was being left off, and I did not get a response.
If I can answer that,
I don't remember that.
Up until like a week ago, there was a bill that was passed that forbid us from being able to use our external auditor in any sort of consultant role. And unfortunately, that law didn't exist when we commissioned the study. So we used our external auditor that has a separate division that does consultation, so they have nothing to do with our external audit, but it's the same firm. And the way the statute was crafted, it said that you could not use your external auditor for consultation. And so we were really forbidden from using, from bringing the firm back. We had the report, but the other thing, beyond just like a specific position by position review, another way of looking at it is how we spend larger groups of money, because there are certain account codes specific to functions within the operation of the district, and that information can be gleaned from other reports without having to, call and get specific information about somebody's individual salary. So it's not as detailed as I think you're asking for. But it is one of the things that we look at now. How much are we spending on school administration as a percentage of our budget? It doesn't tell you how much we pay for principals, but it tells us how much we're spending in the front office. So that would be all the principals, all of the secretaries, front office individuals, et cetera. We can do that within functions of the account code without actually having to get salary information. And that would be actual dollars spent, but it wouldn't be actual somebody's
Okay,
salary.
well then, can I also get the total number of employees that are manager or higher for the last 5 years that are at that level?
For our district?
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Along with that, so I could see how much that number's declined with our enrollment?
Sorry, could you repeat that? I just didn't hear you.
I would just like a total number, just a number. Managers and higher. Managers, so managers, directors, associate superintendents, whether they're level 1 or 2, and how many total we've had at that level for the past 5 years.
I would recommend the 10 years because there was a bunch cut about 10 years ago, so we might go back further. That might be more helpful.
Well, but we'd have to include enrollment then with it, those years. So we could see like the student
work.
count. Yeah.
Okay, so, Ms. Tweedy, so each board member, in order to vote on this recommendation, I need something really clear that our, well, probably Jim, can look for. So if you know right now what the specific information is that's going to allow you to vote, let them know what it is, the information that you need.
I just did.
The last thing you just said is something that you'll need to approve a salary recommendation?
Yeah.
How long will that take? I think the other thing that has to be part of the consideration is we can get, as Dr. Finch says, we can do anything, but sometimes it's about time and money. So how long will a report like that take, Dr. Finch?
I'm already asking Jim, who's running 140 miles an hour, to run 150. So I'm going to pay for it later. But we can do anything. We can do anything. But what you're going to find is that the data is not going to be at the specificity that you're requesting just because doesn't exist. Without us individually calling these folks and finding out what they have, just like the study that was done for us. We paid somebody to do all this work, and they dug, and they could. Only 3 districts wanted to participate, and they did their digging, and yet it's still. And Mr. Miglorino can correct me if I'm wrong. It still wasn't exactly what we're looking for. It's super hard to drill down, and so it depends on how much time you want him to spend on it. But I think if you need to, I think Mr. Miglorino had some good information there at the end that maybe you missed, and that is we can get it by function, so you can tell it by group pretty easily. We can get that pretty easily.
Okay, that's the report I'm talking about. How could we have that?
If you've been to any POP meetings, any interfaith meetings, that data is shown to our constituents once a month, and we have that data, and it's in PowerPoints already.
So getting 10 years worth of that data is not as monumental of a request.
Oh, it'll be a big deal if you want to go back 10 years.
Well, I said 5. You suggested 10.
Okay, so
I'm just
you're asking what I need to vote. It's 5.
If we go back 5, is that? Or I guess Mr. Miglorino, is that when is that, or is it doable?
I think I heard 2 different things. So one request was manager or higher for 10 years. I think that's readily available. I think that's just straight out of the goal book. We can get that information or pull it right from our HR records.
Okay.
Pulling the detail of by function, I think 10 years is possible. But I think 5 years will give you a pretty good indication. I don't know that it's going to be a huge trend.
Actually, on that one, Mr. Miglorino, since I'm the one that asked to vote, I'm trying to figure out how we know our employees are 4%. All of our employees are 4% less. I figured out certified by looking at the Auditor General's report. So that's what I'm trying to figure out.
And President Ordway, Ms. Tweedy, I don't know that you're going to be able to figure that out from what I'm proposing. You're going to be able to figure out what percentage of our budget goes to certain functions relative to how other districts spend that same. So it's not going to be that somebody's salary is 4%. It's going to be that the function itself is being funded at a certain level.
That's not information I would need to vote.
Well, and I guess the reason why I'm suggesting that is because there could be, just for example, one of the reasons that we like to look at this by function is you can actually have somebody do the work. This is true for us, just to give you a real-life example. Within our IS&T or our technology department, we have a lot of people that actually perform functions that repair certain equipment. In other districts, you may pay an outside vendor to actually repair that same piece of equipment. And so we have more staff members in our technology department because we're fixing it, which we think is a more cost-effective way of doing that. So when you look at the total function spend, you're looking at all the dollars for that particular function. You're not looking at a comparison of somebody's salary. So that's why we look at it that way. And it's also very difficult to make direct comparisons between the way districts are organized differently. But in terms of getting somebody's salary information for a or over a period of time, I don't think we would expect to see that from peer districts for weeks, if not longer.
Okay. Well, because I looked at the staffing report, but every time I find something in the staffing report, I'm told it's inaccurate. So I'm just asking someone to send me the accurate information that corrects that.
I think you're talking about the efficiency report?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if I'm looking at that and making decisions and that's inaccurate and people are telling me it is, then I feel like if we're saying it's inaccurate, we should already have data that shows it's inaccurate, or I don't know why people are saying it's inaccurate. That just doesn't make sense to me.
And I'm not sure, maybe I need to get more specifics from you as to what has been deemed inaccurate.
Okay, well, every time I bring up a concern about that report, I'm told, well, only 3 districts, so that's probably not right, or the district self-report, or this or that. So it's just like, well, if we have information that there's stuff in that report that's inaccurate, please just send me the data that that's inaccurate. Because I was referring to that when I was bringing up stuff.
But there were only 3 districts that reported, so that's not.
I understand. So if that makes that inaccurate, then give me the information that's missing from the report.
We couldn't get it, though.
They
That was
wouldn't
the whole
cooperate.
point. We weren't getting the additional information from the other districts,
The
correct?
other districts didn't want to cooperate.
Right? So if the other districts don't cooperate,
Then we
how-
would have no reason to think then that what's in there is inaccurate.
I think we can't say that it's accurate nor inaccurate. It's limited, right? I mean, that would be an accurate statement.
So you're saying it was too small a sample size?
Too small a sample
Correct.
size to be able to.
Correct. We can get trends, maybe especially if they're very comparable in size to us. We can get ideas and trends from it. But yeah,
I'm just
That's a small group.
trying to say, give me something to support what you're saying.
okay.
You can't seriously want me to go out and tell the voters, yes, if we end up giving a larger admin than all our peers, that's because we're all 4% lower. Every position in Deer Valley is 4% lower. Well, how do you know that? Because people tell me. Well, what did you look at? I don't know. We can't really look at anything because no real comparisons are possible.
So
I'm going to sound like a nut.
So, Ms. Tweedy is
It's logical.
the only group with the 4% lower that you're concerned about the admin, or are we looking across the board for all of
I'm
our
concerned about
employees?
all groups. I'm concerned that we do things unfairly in this district, and I could be completely off base by that. I mean, it could just be that's why I'm just saying, what does the data show? If everybody in this district is equally underpaid, let's raise everybody up equally. I don't have a vengeance against any one group. I would like us to be fair. If that's not true of all groups, but we know it's true of some, let's fix that. I'm just saying, I can't imagine these are like data that should be easy to look at.
I don't know that there's anything in school finance or in finance that's easy to look at. It
But
almost
this
sounds
is,
simple, but
this
it's
is
not
why the
easy.
public doesn't want to fund education, because this would be a normal thing for people to be able to show people.
And it would be wonderful if the legislature would write statute that would make it easy, that school finance isn't written by this governing board. Correct? The school finance laws are not written by governing board members. Correct?
Okay. But I need to know how I'm voting to spend our money.
Okay. Can I ask a question?
You get one because I'm going on. We're kind of going around in circles.
Well, Mrs. Reed asked for something. Was it a survey of the
Well, I'm not done
staff?
yet.
Okay.
I'm going to get
Sorry.
a list. Okay. I'm going to start over here. I already have Miss Tweedy. Miss Frank, what do you need to vote on this?
So what I need to know is, when you look at the difference between the school-based admin versus the district office admin, and does it make sense? Are we paying our school-based admin significantly less than our peer districts? Does it make sense to differentiate that raise? So that's because we're going to get asked these questions.
Right, you're asking them to decide whether it makes sense or not. You've got to ask a different question, like, are we lower or higher admin at a campus?
Okay,
or
our
admin
campus
at the district
admin lower
office?
than our peers, and is the same true for district office admin. And I know that when you look at district office, that's a wide net, but the perception of the public is going to be negative when they look at areas where we have shortages, bus drivers and classroom teachers. Do we have shortages in those other areas as well? So is our campus admin lower or higher than our peers, and does the same trend follow through for our district office?
Yeah, I'm not really sure that the salary recommendation is going to be the answer to explaining to the public how
Saw a lot of
what the perception is, and I saw a lot of comments that
Okay, you interrupted me.
but I wasn't finished before you started speaking. So go ahead and finish.
There were a lot of comments with concerns about specifically classroom dollars and teacher raises, and it was not my intention to interrupt you.
Okay. There were a lot of different comments. I'm just saying that I don't think this salary negotiation is going to inform the public on how they should look at things. Because when you talk about district administration, you're not just talking about Gail, or you're also talking about Sheila's position. She's your district administrator. So there's a lot of levels that are not obvious. Ms. Reed, what's your list?
I don't have a list. I just wanted to open it up to other stakeholders to see if they had any other input. That was it. So if we decide to table this for another evening, my hope is that I get some emails or have some conversations with different employees from all three different stakeholder groups, either through email or phone or coffee or whatever. And if I don't get any, then I don't get any, and I guess everybody's fine with recommendation of how it is.
Mrs. O'Brien.
I'm good.
Okay, so I'm good with making sure that we have a list. What is the suggestion? Are we going for a special meeting prior to May 9th, or what are we looking at? Anybody have any open dates prior to May 9th?
You'd need a motion to do that as well.
Pardon me, sir?
Well, right,
You'd need a motion to do that
but
as
before
well.
we have a
Oh,
motion,
before
can we have that
I go
discussion?
through that motion, I want to make sure
Okay.
there is a reason. What the motion's going to be. Yes, Ms. Reed.
Mrs. Moffett, how much time would your department need to issue everything? Like, let's say we give you the green light. How much time do you need?
I'm going to defer that question to Jim. I'm assuming we would need at least 3 days, but it is a payroll function.
So, Jim, how long do you think it'll take to run it through the machine?
I guess it depends on how complicated the increase is, because if it's a straightforward calculation, we can probably process within 2 to 3 days. If it's more involved, like we strip out certain groups, like just even the adjustment for the classified for the bus driving range from range 22 to 25, we have to manually handle those 200 some odd employees. So if it gets straightforward and we're just applying a percentage increase to everybody, we can do that much more quickly.
So prior to May 9th, what does everyone's calendar look like? Do they want to come up with a date if we make a motion?
I don't think that gives everybody enough time to hit the May 9th deadline. based on the discussion or the answers just provided.
I believe Mr. Migliano is actually gone next week as well. He forgot to tell you that. That's going to make it a little more complicated as well. And I may be gone as well.
Right, but he won't be here
No,
for a
they're
meeting.
talking about issuing the appointments, not getting the information in 2 days. Correct? Is that what?
Correct.
But
But we might not be able to get that information that fast. We can try. We give
Well,
the college a try.
Right, the 9th is the deadline, though. That's giving them less than 48 hours.
oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Reed.
Ms. Frank. And I guess I don't know if we're allowed to do this. Are we allowed to split up? Because it doesn't sound like, or I shouldn't put words in your mouth. Are you okay with approving the 5% for classified and certified and tabling the raise for admin? Is that, because it sounds like just for, I don't maybe I'm didn't hear right, but to issue the appointments, that was specifically for classified staff. Was that correct? So if we were to be able to approve that this evening, because it doesn't seem like anybody has an issue with that, would that be helpful, or am I complicating things?
I can tell you I would not agree to give us classified less than 5%. If we found more money, I would want to maybe address other issues with classified, but I could approve 5%. And if we figure out something else, we could always go back and amend part of it. I would never say I would give classified less than 5%.
Mrs. O'Brien?
Okay, so what are the consequences of approving part of it and not the admin and certified portion? I'm just...
Mrs. O'Brien, I'm going to ask one more question. Could we get the association presidents back up there? Because I want to ask your opinion of splitting this up.
We'll
That
have
would be
to,
3 of you.
we'll have to reissue contracts again if the numbers change. So we'll have to do it twice.
That would be you, Dr. Miller. You make 3.
Wouldn't be the first time they reissued contracts.
I mean, because one of the things they
One at a
said is
time.
they wanted to address the bus drivers again. So you don't know tonight if they can or not.
Loud is good. We need to stay awake.
President Ordway, can you repeat the question again? Was that, is okay with Ms. Reed's motion? Was that the question?
No, there wasn't a motion. The question is, what are your thoughts if we were to dissect and separate your recommendation? Recommendation
Or the recommendation, yes.
for the salary.
Well, since our group ratified our particular raise, I believe we would be in favor of that. Having not spoken to them, but we've already ratified our portion of the salary package.
So you would be in favor of breaking it up?
If that creates a more informed vote, then yes.
So then if we would approve that, and then whatever comes out of the other two, so how would that work for you then? Have you thought about that?
Yes, I'm understanding that to be kind of the way that I misrepresented at the very beginning. But when we, as a certified group, made the recommendation to the administrative group, it was just a recommendation.
Did you make that to all of NSG?
Correct? Yes, during the report out the following day.
All right. And then you sent the information to all certified employees the following day? And they voted, or what was the time frame? Again, I'm just trying to get it back in my head.
Well, since it's only a recommendation, we ratified our portion of the salary package
When?
last Tuesday.
Then they took it to
And then you
NST
took
on
it to
Wednesday.
NST on Wednesday.
And then NST was the following day, yes.
Okay. Mr. Bohawk, what about you guys?
I guess I'll have to say that would be unacceptable to divide this up. I've worked with these people in this committee for a lot of years, and we came to a conclusion that I thought was pretty fair and equitable, so I think I would have to, it's all of us, or we'll just have to wait. I mean, it would be nice to go out tomorrow and finish on a strong note the next 3 weeks, but I guess so be it the way it falls. I mean, let the cards fall.
Dr. Miller?
President Ordway, members of the board, Dr. Finch, I would have to agree with Dennis. We have spent, again, I was not at the last meeting, but as a group, we've spent hours on this. We've all agreed when we walked out that that's what we wanted across the board. Again, I know Dennis used a great word of distorted. I don't know where that all has come from, but like I said, what was presented or whatever with the split was not something that our constituents, the BLT, said that we wanted. We agreed to 5% across the board. So I would say just what he said. So that we need to move forward, or, you know, it's all or nothing, not to split it up, because part of I guess what I come back to is this: we need to be a united front on all levels. So I know there's a lot of points that are being made and said, but in doing so, I thought our groups were represented and everyone got that feedback and gave feedback and input. So that's where I'm at, or we're at.
Ask a question.
Absolutely.
Dr. Miller or Mr. Bohack, did either one of your organizations provide input to what the Deer Valley Educators Association should do with their portion of the salary?
No, we did not.
Ms. O'Brien, President Ordway, and Dr. Finch, if I understand your question, no, I don't think we gave them do you mean a suggestion? Or yeah, no, that was not our purview to do. We dealt with our constituents.
Okay. Okay. I'll say something else.
Yes, you may, and then Ms. Reed.
This time of year and making decisions about money is always difficult. And I was, as I said, I questioned Dr. Finch during agenda review about this not coming in a preview item first. And this time of year, time is usually of the essence in trying to meet expectations and needs of employees, as well as statutory requirements, as well as it's just a crazy time of year in trying to deal with everything. I think our employee groups have done remarkable jobs with the benefits recommendation, and kudos to this board for approving that recommendation so there would be minimal impact to our benefits. I think what is sometimes lost in trying to deal with all this is that we are a team. And while I believe our teachers are our quarterbacks, and I'm not going to take credit for this analogy because I heard a teacher give it. What she said is she's the quarterback. She's in the classroom. She's got the ball every day. But if she doesn't have her offensive line, if she doesn't have all of her coaches, she can't make this happen. And I think that what is troubling to me about some of the conversation tonight is that we're devaluing some of the employees that work in this district. And it happens every year at this time, as well as a number of times throughout the year. So while I wish we had more time, and I know we have to answer to constituents and to legislators whom we ask for more money, and the truth is if I think if our legislators did their job in a timely manner, we wouldn't be approving or having to approve pay raises pending them making their decisions. And as someone said to me a couple of weeks ago, or a few weeks ago, when teachers were issued their salaries, this is really dumb that I have a contract with no pay raise in it. The first thing our legislators and our governor should do is approve a budget. They shouldn't wait to do it last, because everybody is dependent upon that. So I'm not going to make any of my legislator friends or make any points with the governor, I'm sure, tonight, or anybody on the ninth floor. But I think that we should vote this evening.
Wanted to say thank you for your input. I appreciate it and take it into consideration. Thank you.
As your superintendent, I also wouldn't recommend that we split it, just because from the team perspective, what we're trying to build here is all for one for all. And then when you do that, inadvertently you turn groups on each other, and we don't want that. And NST has worked hours and hours and hours on this, and so I think we need to honor the process. And if we need more information, let's hold off until we get more information and see the best we can do. We have some time constraints, but in the perfect world, we would vote tonight. But I don't know if you're headed that way or not. But either way, I don't think splitting it's the right answer. Would not be my recommendation.
There is a motion sitting on the table, or the JS, whatever you want to call it. Something else, or yeah, why don't you read it again, just since it was such a long time ago.
The motion is that the governing board accept the administration's recommendation to approve the negotiated solution team salary recommendation for 2019-2020.
Further discussion?
Well, I already said I would like to table it, so I don't know if you guys are willing to do that or not.
Are you making a motion to table?
I would like to motion to table it till the next meeting.
Which is May 5th, 14th?
Yes, it is. May 14th.
You'll need a second to approve that motion, or it dies with a lack of second.
Well, I have very mixed feelings about the whole discussion. I'm not sure we're going to get the information that some of us want in the short time period.
We'll get you that information. It just might not be in a timely manner, unfortunately. We'll give it to as hard as we can. We'll give it to college try.
And I haven't heard that anyone has a date that we can all agree on. I don't want to hold up the process for the employee groups. I don't feel comfortable voting tonight. So if we choose to go forward with a vote, I will most likely abstain. That's just where I'm at with it. I don't think every vote has to be a 5-0. I think we all have to vote according to what we feel comfortable with or what we believe. So if you want to call for the vote tonight, I'm not going to object.
All right, there was no second for that motion, so I will, unless there's any more discussion, I will.
Why don't you do a roll call?
Okay.
Dave?
A roll call for the vote on this motion.
Just so we know.
All those in favor, say aye.
To have Sheila do a roll call.
Oh, hold on a second. Would you repeat it one more time, Mrs. O'Brien?
The motion?
Yes, please.
I recommend that the governing board accept the administration's recommendation to approve the negotiated solution team salary recommendation for 2019-2020, which is a 5% increase for all employee groups.
Roll call vote, starting with Ms. Tweedy.
Abstain.
Abstain for the same reasons I abstained last year.
Can I explain my vote? I feel a little conflicted in voting tonight, just because I feel like that there's a lot of information that other governing board members have that they would need in order to not abstain from the vote. At the same time, being in governance and not in managing, I know that we have people that step up and that are on NST that have put in a lot of time and a lot of dedication and represent their employee groups. I have to have faith that you have taken into consideration all of the feedback that you've gotten from your employee groups, and that you have had a lot of discussion together regarding this. So I will vote tonight. I do appreciate the amount of time and everybody's input in this. So thank you for that, and I do vote aye.
O'Brien?
I vote aye as well, and I would like to thank you all for your hard work on this, and just really appreciate you coming to this agreement together.
I'm going to vote aye, and I'm going to also say thank you, and do like to try to respect the processes. And if as board members we want to change the processes so we get information in a earlier, different way, or we want to insert more of our selves into that process, then we need to talk about that prior to this time of year. So I will vote aye.
All right. And we will work on getting that information.
Sorry, I was.
Yep, 3-0. 3-0, 2 abstentions.
E, I move that the governing board accept the administration's recommendation to approve the voluntary developer per unit pay agreement with Lennar, Arizona, Inc.
I second.
Ms. Smith-Reno, are you interested in explaining this to us again?
Yeah, President Ordway, members of the board, Dr. Finch. So this is our, I'll say, modified standard agreement that we use for development. I also wanted to recognize that Mr. Earl, representing the developer, has been here for since the beginning of the meeting,
Awesome.
and would be here to answer any questions that the board might have. This development is just north of the Sonoran Foothills Elementary School. Was a state land parcel that was recently sold and will be developed into residential homes. They are still working on some of the details of the development with the city of Phoenix, but it does require the rezoning process. As I think most people are aware, Sonoran Foothills is at capacity currently, and it projected to exceed their capacity in the foreseeable future. So our standard operating practice is to enter into a development agreement with developers. The modification to this agreement would be that they are willing to provide half of the voluntary assistance fee up front for the number of projected number of homes to help address any needs that we would have immediately. Most of our agreements are based on when the permit is pulled. So at each permit, it starts a clock, and within 90 days, the permit, the voluntary assistance fee then trickles in as they are doing the development. So half of the voluntary assistance fee would be paid up front. The other half would be processed in a similar fashion to we do for all other agreements based on the permit draws. So I know that there are other questions related to this development. I don't know that those can be answered this evening, and as to traffic issues and things of that nature. But suffice it to say that part of the school boundary changes that we are investigating will be to change the school boundary for the Sonoran Foothills School. I don't see us changing this particular parcel to be anything but at Sonoran Foothills because it's adjacent to the school. But we do know that Sonoran Foothills school boundary will be proposed as part of our recommendation to the board. We're working on those now. I wouldn't expect the board to see those until maybe middle of next school year. And I'd be happy to answer any question. And as I mentioned, Mr. Earl is here as well.
I have a question. What is the amount that we're looking at? The half that we're looking at receiving?
So it's $500 times however many homes they end up getting approved through the city process.
And you don't have that yet, right? That number is not
It's not
established yet.
finalized.
Okay.
No.
And then, is there a time frame? I know that. A time frame for that, for the city to finalize that?
That's a city process that I'm not aware of,
Okay.
and Mr. Earl might be able to speak to that.
Is Mr. Earl, can he speak to that?
Watch out, that's a hot seat. Thank you, Beck.
Good evening. My name is, for your record, my name is Taylor Earl. Our address is 3101 North Central Avenue. So the question really is the city process. So we have to go through two processes in order to get to this trigger point. One would be the zoning process. The second would be the platting process. And so between now and then, there's a lot of moving parts that happen. Our objective would be to receive final plat around February, sometime between December and February, if we could, assuming the zoning gets approved and we can get through the technical review process. And so the way that this is structured is that half, that $500 per lot, would be triggered around that 90 days from the final plat approval and recordation.
Thank you. Ms. Frank.
And Mr. Migliorino, how will those funds be spent? What will they be used for?
President Ordway and Ms. Frank, we don't necessarily have a designated use for the funds at the present moment, but we do have a provision, because we don't know what the school boundary change impact would have on the school. There is a provision when we built the school initially to expand the school just adjacent to the multipurpose building. There we reserved a spot for some additional classrooms. And so the money could be spent on increasing the classrooms at the campus or reconfiguring the campus in some way. We've done that on other campuses where, just as a for example, so this is not something that's in the works, it's built with a computer lab as part of our standard. If we get close to a one-to-one initiative at campuses, there's really not a need to have a computer lab, and so that space can be reconverted into other instructional space, as a for example.
But the purpose of the funds is to relieve the overcrowding at the school as a result of the new, am I understanding that correctly? Or the new?
That is correct. The purpose of the funds is to provide a remedy for the fact that there's not capacity at the school to accept the projected number of students from the development.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Tweedy.
The money that's paid up front, do we have to pay it back if something goes, like the house doesn't really sell, it falls through or something?
President Orway, Ms. Tweedy, no, the way the agreement is written, that money would be ours to be used on the Sonoran Foothills School, regardless of what happens with the development.
So there's no potential that any upfront money has to be paid back?
Correct. No upfront money, but it would, the other half, the other $500 would be subject on a permit being pulled. So the upfront money would not be at risk, but the other half that's in the agreement would be subject to a permit actually being pulled for a house to be built.
Okay.
Thank you. I don't think there's any further discussion. We take a vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. All those in favor press aye. Hers did not come up.
didn't pop up.
Hers is stuck.
pop up.
We can do it for you. Yep.
All right.
Yes.
Going to. Great, right?
The employee satisfaction and parent stakeholder surveys feedback response.
Ms. Reed, did you want to start this? Okay.
Since this was my ask to be on here, like I mentioned in my board report, I did read through and took some copious notes, and I'm happy to send those to Dr. Finch with some of the notes that I took. But there were a couple of them that I'm hoping that the district and the board might be able to address that I think are common beliefs amongst some of our stakeholder groups that may not necessarily be true. And so one of the things that I read in both of the surveys was stakeholders don't feel that the board is approachable or the board is transparent enough. And so one of the hopes that I have is that maybe on our governing board page, we could have a frequently asked question to provide some information about what the governing board does, what our function is, what issues we have control over, what issues we don't have control over. There were a lot of comments in there asking for our help with personnel issues, and that's not really our purview. We are governance, finance, policy, and so I think that a lot of people don't understand what it is that we do. One of them on there was basically the comment was, how dare you pay yourself a livable wage when you don't pay your teachers a livable wage? And so as the governing
times nothing is still nothing.
Yes, as a governing board, we are the only elected officials in the state of Arizona who do not receive compensation for serving. So we don't receive a paycheck. So just things like that I hope that we can educate. That's one of my big goals is education for the board to our constituents. And one of the things I know that Mrs. Frank mentioned, some of the things that she saw. One of the biggest things that I saw, besides class sizes and making sure that we have accurate information out about PLCs, was the need for equity in our district. Equity between schools, equity between sports and fine arts, equity between boys and girls sports. So I think that is an issue that we as a board need to look at, and as a district to see where we can start to implement some of those ideas. But before I jump into more of these, I would just like to know, Dr. Finch, when you get this raw data, what does your admin team do with it?
We were just talking about this today in our cabinet meeting. We divide it into parts. There's a couple different ways you can do it. If it's parent satisfaction, for example, that kind of goes in its own barrel. But if it's building based or department based, I like my leaders, my division leaders, or my supervisors of those divisions to look at that data through their lens. So they gathered the data and make assumptions, trends that they look for, and then they make recommendations to the team and to me as well, or me. And I even use it partly in the evaluations, and we use it in evaluations at the building level as well. So when it comes to community and parents, that we try to steer it to where it best fits. And so if we're working on culture, for example, or PLCs, there's someone that's in charge of that. So we guide that feedback to maybe if it's better communication or better explanation, if it's a FAQ page, et cetera, et cetera. So the team, Scott brings it to us, Dr. Scott, and he collects it as well. What's another word? Synthesizes it while looking for trends, and Wordle's example. those kinds of things, and then we make decisions based on that. So, but I think I like the trail where you're going down, the concept of an FAQ from a board's perspective to the community. I think you're on the right trail. We can help facilitate that, because I think that's very common, that you see misperceptions of what you actually do and what your function is and what your role is, and that would be helpful to the community. I think you're on the right trail. It's something each of the board members could, if you wanted me to collect it and to start putting it up, or if you want to have a study session on it, or whatever function would work the best for you to get things that you've run into. Ms. Ordway, you've been a board member for a decade now, and so you've seen many questions, and you've probably answered many questions many times. So I think a webpage might be a good idea, unless somebody else has some better ideas.
I think that's an idea, and I think, not to use the word better, but I think there might be some additional ideas. And I'm going to go back to the Deer Valley University that we used to have, which was really helpful. It did not reach 5,000 children's parents or every stakeholder, but the staff members that went and the parents that went learned a lot. And there were segments, or parts, that was governing board, superintendent, and it was finance. And I think that along those lines, and I don't know how many people would watch these fabulous and interesting modules that we could make, but also that could be there too. So an employee or whomever could look and say, "Why that governing board member? Why aren't they at the school all the time?" Well, there's 38 schools. There's 5 people. Everyone has a different kind of schedule. We try to do what we do, and it's a choice to be. So some of those things I think could be modules, or Gary could help with. I just said that because you were looking the other way. Anyway, there's so many platforms.
Well, I do think it's important that our staff and our community understand that we do read them and we take them to heart. And there's clearly, I think, some, we're missing the boat in a couple of areas and not educating folks. I think it's a great to start at maybe a frequently asked questions, as well as some, basic information about what governing boards do. I would like to see us develop a plan to have maybe some webinars or videos available where they could learn a little bit more about the district. I know that our employees, get some training. I found back in the day when I went, DVUSD, very helpful. At that time, technology was not as prevalent, so I think putting it, on our website would be awesome, so that we don't have to repeat it over and over, because our staff, I know, is very tapped. But it is important for everyone to know that we do read them, we take them seriously, and I read a lot about communication, and it's interesting. On one hand, some feedback was, you quit communicating. You're telling, we're tired of hearing from you. Yet, 2 pages later, it was a whole bunch of, you don't communicate enough. We have no idea what's going on in our school or with our teacher or with the district. And I thought, okay, we're living in a couple of, and of course it lies somewhere in the middle, and your perception is reality and all of those fun things. So I love that your admin take that information and work with it. And I think it's good that this governing board has done their due diligence in reading them all and want to move forward to assist in that.
We might want to include it in our in a board retreat. That could be part of our board retreat this summer too, as well. Do some plans or something around that. Talk more about it.
That's right.
I would just say, in looking at those comments, it's important to differentiate between what is clearly misinformation. The example about board members being paid, that you can prove we don't get paid anything. So that's clearly, that's an easy one to clear up. But not to confuse that with people's opinions based on their experiences. So if a comment is made about, my child is in an overcrowded classroom, that parent to say, well, that they're misinformed, that's their opinion based on their specific experience. If someone says, I can't afford daycare every single Friday and I'm opposed to PLCs, they're not misinformed about PLCs. They're concerned about their budget. So I think it's really important that we're not sending the message to the community that their negative comments are a result of being misinformed, because that's not the case for the vast majority of the comments that I read.
And I hope my comments didn't come across
No,
to say
I'm not
that-
calling out any specific board member on that. I'm just saying this is my observation. I think it's really important that we don't communicate to people that your negative comment was a result of being misinformed. I wasn't suggesting that that's what
okay,
you
and
said.
I want to make that clear, because I don't believe that a negative comment means that a person is necessarily misinformed. I think everybody has, where they live. You might have like you said, a full classroom, whereas that same classroom in another campus is not full and has substantially less students. So that is not at all what I intended.
And sometimes negative comments are constructive criticism, a way for us to reflect, right?
Some of us, yes, I did notice some of us were called out by name on certain behaviors. Yes, I noticed that.
Miss Tweedy.
I would, if we do go forward with this, I would say, just like when we release any statement on behalf of the whole board, that the whole board agree with what's being posted.
Yeah, maybe
That's my
maybe the
feedback.
retreat actually idea.
If we
would
were to
work.
do
Do it as a
a
group.
question and answer, that we all agree with what we're saying
Oh, I agree.
ahead of time. Okay.
There were two ideas that were taken that I had that I found that I thought were interesting, and I'd like to just mention it for you guys to consider. One of them was we have conversations with Kurt. A parent said that it would be great if they were able to have conversations with a board member, just to talk to the board member, to ask questions, just a more open forum to be able to talk. And then the second one was in regards to PLCs. A parent suggested, actually there were a few parents that suggested they would like more information on what the teachers are doing in PLCs. So, what are they currently learning? If we're doing it by quarter, what quarter, first quarter, what are our teachers discussing? What are they looking at? And then maybe even some sort of report back or reflection, so parents could understand if they're supporting their teachers having this 90-minute PLC a week, how it's reflecting back into their teaching time in the classroom.
And I think we have asked for, or you have told us that you have a plan for that,
We do.
but
We
I
do.
think it's got to be a little bit sooner than later, because we
Yep.
keep getting these questions about
Yep.
what is this 90 minutes of every week that you're wasting.
We are worried about information overload, so we've been pacing it all. So you're on the same page we are. More information.
I think
We'll
they want to be
continue that.
overloaded with PLC and maybe some TLC, but they want to know about PLC.
Yep. Nope. That'll be part of
PLC
it.
could get us into trouble if we're not careful.
Yeah, they're a very good 80s group, if I remember right.
That's pretty true. Okay, so
Mandarin immersion.
can we move on to Mandarin immersion?
Dr. Galligan?
Well, board members, are we ready to move on? Okay.
President Ordway, members of the board, Dr. Finch, this evening we will bring you a preview item for our K-8 Mandarin Immersion resource adoption. Hope Loveland, our world language specialist, will share information about the adoption process, team members, and recommended resources.
You're in the hot seat, but your mic is not.
And you have to pull it very close to you and speak right into it.
That's the close talker mic.
Okay, thank you. President Ordway, members of the board, and Dr. Finch, the DVUSD Mandarin program continuously strives to deliver quality instruction, maximize language acquisition, and find resources that best support teachers. We currently use Better Immersion for Mandarin language arts. We found that with Better Immersion, we needed to modify the materials and resources to fit a 50-50 partial immersion model. Even after modifications, we continue to find the materials lack consistency from grade level to grade level, and our teachers are having to provide lots of supplemental materials to meet students' interests and needs. Thus, we are seeking resources that will meet the needs of our students in a 50-50 model, aligned to world language and English language arts standards, and support differentiated learning. We established a committee and solicited a variety of reputable publishers who have created materials for Mandarin immersion. The committee met to create a rubric that reflects the needs of our program, student populations, and community. We reviewed materials for potential finalists, participated in vendor presentations with specific questions, and engaged in a final review. Included on the committee were administrators, parents, Mandarin teachers, and an English side teacher. Every Mandarin teacher participated at each school and provided valuable input and feedback. We also worked with IS&T to review digital possibilities with each vendor. It was important to the committee to only make a recommendation if we were able to find resources that met all of our criteria. This includes being fully aligned to not only world language standards, but also ELA standards, AP themes and objectives, and IB themes and objectives. The resources need to be able to be utilized in a 50-50 K-8 immersion program, providing differentiation for a variety or various proficiency levels and learner types, including gifted, 504, and students with an IEP. We want to continue a digital platform for differentiation, learner engagement, and support parent involvement. As we're a data-driven district, we want resources that include formative and summative assessments, fully aligned to standards, including data tools. It was also important for us to have resources that are student-friendly with high-interest topics with both fiction and nonfiction. We found such a program with Mandarin Matrix. They provide a comprehensive, spiraled set of resources, including class sets and a digital platform of over 750 different fictional and non-fictional books. The books include age-appropriate topics of high interest that will motivate our students to communicate with each other, engage in reading, and support teachers in planning lessons that are personalized to our student populations. The online platform is available to teachers and students at school and at home. It is also available in Mandarin, contains Mandarin characters, pinyin, and English, which was particularly important to our parent group. Mandarin Matrix includes lesson plans in Mandarin and in English, which provides administrators with tools to support teachers, unlike our current resources. Mandarin Matrix was the top choice for our Mandarin teachers, administrators, and parents. With your support, our goal would be to order materials in May for delivery by June and have full implementation for the start of the 2019-2020 school year. Another positive aspect of Mandarin Matrix is that with purchase of their materials, they will include in-person trainings, and they also have developed a library of pre-recorded demonstration of each lesson plan. We feel this will be significant support for implementation and overall instruction for language acquisition. With Utah Public Schools in our area Mandarin immersion programs also utilizing Mandarin Matrix, our teachers will have many opportunities for collaboration with these materials. Each teacher will be provided online access, including assessments and data tools, as well as grade-level hard copies and classroom sets.
For the class sets, each grade level, K-8, and online accounts for the next 5 years for all students and teachers. You can see the cost is $177,735, and that includes shipping and tax. We're excited about this potential opportunity and hope for your support and or any questions you might have. This will be brought back to you on May 14th as old business and an action item. Thank you.
I don't know if we have questions right now, but even if we do additionally to those, if we have more, we can send them to Dr. Finch. Take care of it. Mrs. Frank? Yeah.
Sorry, my mic's not on. Is there a fee for site licenses for the digital platforms?
President Ordway, Ms. Frank, I believe that the price that we are showing there is inclusive for both the hard copies and the online support.
Okay, so if you could just let me know, and you can put it in a board update, if that includes site licenses, that would be good for the 5 years, so there would be no additional costs incurred after the initial purchase.
For 5 years. For 5 years.
For 5 years, okay.
Does anyone have any more questions? No? Why, thank you. That was a great presentation. So that moves us to the saddest part of the evening. We know what our future meetings and dates are to remember, and now we will make a motion to sad and say goodbye.
I move to adjourn. the
Second.
meeting.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Oh, aye.